Hello there. Well, today's make is this nice box basket, and it's made out of fat quarters, but I really wanted to say happy Thanksgiving because it's Thanksgiving today. Alright, so have a lovely day everyone, and thank you so much for watching. Hello, we're going to make a quilted box today. Now to do this I've got 2 fat quarters and some wadding. Now I'm using 2-ounce wadding, but I think it would respond to thicker wadding, and we're also going to need 4 buttons. So there is a little bit of hand sewing as well. I'm just going to line these up. I have the selvage here, so I have to make sure that I don't include that in the sewing. And then if I hold the corners together and give it a little shake, hopefully it'll come in line. Now I'm using a contrasting thread. This is just preference. When you're using different coloured fabrics, then it can be a bit of a trick, can't it? Whether you use the same or not. So how I've done it, I've got the 2 layers of the printed fabric back to back, and then I have a layer of wadding on top. Now I'm choosing to sew the wadding so that I can see it, and that if it does get into a pickle, it's easy enough to remove from the foot. So it's just a matter, for now, for sewing all the way around, but leaving a gap of say 4 inches just to turn inside out. I'll be back. Hello, so welcome back. I've now sewn all the way around the outside, and as you can see it's caught up in the foot, and what I do is I ignore it to a point, and then I just carry on sewing through if it catches a little bit, and then if it catches a lot, then I do actually take the foot out and give it a good little clean. So it really depends on your personality type. If it is too annoying, then what I suggest is that we sew and we have some grease-proof paper, pattern paper, something light, and then we sew across 2 layers of fabric, 1 layer of wadding and 1 layer of paper, and that's fine to do. It is really just a personality type. If you can't cope with it, then don't cope with it. You know, we can work around it. Okay, so what I'm doing whilst I'm chatting away is I'm turning this inside out. I'm making sure that I really point my corners. Now you can do this by pushing a knitting needle or something through, or we can just squeeze those corners out with our thumb and our forefinger. But it's easier to do now. Now rather than sew up the hole and then sew round the first layer of the quilting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my turning inside out hole inside. I'm just going to push my fingers in there and then pop it through so that you can see that it's quite a nice little seam. And that is just practice. I'm using a poly cotton, so in a way it's quite easy to handle. It's quite happy to be turned inside out. I can pin it if I like, or what I can do is I can put it straight into the sewing machine, and sometimes I use this foot as my 3rd hand, and you'll see quite a lot of people doing that. Now again, yes, if you want to, we can hem this by ironing first and then pinning, if you want to. Yeah, or you can just do it. It's just going over the seam there so you can hear it rattling a bit. I've made sure everything is straight, and I am going to sew all the way round, so making sure that my corners are nice and sharp. And the hem allowance I'm giving myself is the width of the foot, so it's not even ½ an inch, it's more like 1/8 of an inch, but you know, that's because I'm happy with that. And quilting is all about precision sewing, so a good starting point. Alright, I'll be back. So welcome back. We've now sewn around the outside. The next job to do is to decide on the quilting pattern. Now what I'm going to do is squares, and they're going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So personally, I like to do continuous line sewings, but this way we have to do the square and then we have to take this machine off and do it again. Now, alright, first thing we need to do is we need to decide how thick we want this pattern to be. Now, I'm going to say 1½ inches, but you can do smaller if you prefer. It's just literally preference. Now there's all sorts of ways we can mark our machine. I usually mark my machine with a Sharpie marker pen, which is not ideal, but you know, it's my machine and yeah, I can get away with it. Post-it notes, they're a great thing as well. We can put a post-it note anywhere we like, even sort of up there if we wanted to, and we can mark our hem allowance with that. Or you can slide a hair tie over there if you're so inclined. So yes, how to decide the width. The next thing is, probably came with your sewing machine. Now this is the foot that attaches here. This is like the way it's held. And I've got a spare one here, and I just wanted to show you this little hole here, because if I just put it on my machine it's not going to be very clear. And we basically push this bar through the cap, and then we can line up our previous line of stitches on the foot here, and we can then sew, and it does work exceptionally well. So let me just put it on this machine and I can show you what I mean. So I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to literally put my foot down, and I'm going to use this stitch to keep my line straight. And it's one of these things that it really does show. If your stitches are slightly off, it really does sort of, it really just shows. So, and then I'm just going to follow that down. I'm going to move my sewing machine so you can see what I'm talking about. If I put my bar foot down on the previous line of stitches, then it will hold it sort of in place whilst I sew the next line of stitches. And then I'm going to take it off, move the fabric and go till I've got to the centre. Alright, well, you know I'm going to be back. Hello there, welcome back. Okay, so I have a piece of paper here for the next stage. We need to divide it up. So basically I'm going to fold it in half, and I can either fold my bit of paper to the right size or not. It really depends on you. So let's go like that. So I now know that the width I need is this for this next part, because what I need to do is I need from a quarter of the way through the make, I need to then sew an angle of 45 degrees to the centre. Now in a way it's quite easy because we've got this pattern on here that marks where 45 degrees is, because I can just see that it's 90 degrees at the corners and I can see that it's 45 degrees. Excuse me. So to every middle I need to literally lop this corner off. So that's that. Yeah? And I need to do that on 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got my marker. I've folded it in half. I have my sewing machine here. I am going to place my guide on my fabric and I'm going to sew down. Oh, actually, before we do this, we need to decide what we want on the inside and what we want on the outside. Now, in a way, the favourite of your two fabrics will be more visible if they are folded over for the buttons. Yeah? Even though you will see the majority of the fabric on the outside. Yes, okay, so we've got a marker here, and it's just as well we did too. We're on the fold again, and we're just sewing down. And I can leave that there. Once I'm going, I'm fine. Couple of reverse stitches. and then I'm going to the next long side, folding it in half, and with my marker. Now it depends on you as well. Of course you can do all these markers with pins. It's just really however you're happy with. And of course, the cleaner these lines, the better the finished garment will look. And that's the same with all sewing. So my last long side here, and it really is beginning to take shape now. I have my marker, and I just sew down. Okay. So now we're going to turn it inside out, because we're going to keep those flappy bits on the inside. And what we're going to do is we're going to tack those in so they're out of the way. You know, we don't need them now. They're done. And then also we need to fold this over, and we need to sew our button. Now I've chosen to use a contrasting thread throughout, and I'm going to remain with that. Now of course you can sew these in with the sewing machine. I just think it looks better if it has got that sort of floppy organic look. Now I've chosen to use the owl buttons, and of course it would look just as well with you know, traditional buttons. So there we are, threading a needle, which is not my favourite thing. And it's entirely up to you whether you do it from this side or the other side. I'm actually going to turn it back inside out, just so that I can get it as neat as possible for me. And yeah, but we are on the homeward straight now. You know, all we have to do, choose our buttons and sew everything together. So, next job, my flappy corners, I'm going to sew them in, and I'm choosing to do them so that they are on the same side, and all I really need is to do one stitch there, and with the same piece of thread I am then going to sew my button on, because we're in about the same position. We've got the fold and we've got the button. But it's really up to you. That's an awful lot of fabric, and yeah. So I'm going to start off with the flappy bit out so that I've got my knot on the inside, and then I'm going to take just a second, make sure it's all lying flat and that I'm happy with it, and then I can just pop a couple of stitches in there just to make sure it's all secure. Okay, so I'll be back in a minute with a finished article. Alright, thank you for watching so far. So, I'm all done now. I've got my buttons sewn on. I must admit, I would have gone for different fabric if I'd have thought about it. I feel it's a bit busy, but that's my own problem. And maybe if I'd have gone for completely different fabric, then it would show better on the camera. But this is what we were going for, and this is what we've got. We've got our flappy bits sewn in, and if we were using that, that would be a great storage space for a pair of scissors or something. So, and we're all done. Thank you ever so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee.